ladies and gentlemen, distinguished professors, CEOs of national qualification agencies, accreditation agencies here present. My name is Chigozie Emmanuel Okonkwo. Let me take this earliest opportunity to first thank you all for turning up and to welcome you on behalf of the absent due to the internet instability in Addis Ababa. I would like to welcome you to this important African Continental Qualification Framework peer learning webinar. Due to the challenges of COVID-19, we are unable to, of course, meet physically, but the advancement in technology, you agree, has provided us an opportunity to carry on our business virtually. It is at the backdrop of this that I say we really appreciate each and every one of you for your presence here today. And this is particularly interesting because you are all important stakeholders with very distinct roles that is by and large very essential for our common objective on this project, which is mainly to enhance comparability, quality and transparency of qualifications from all subsystems and level of education and training on the continent. And more importantly, to support people's lifelong learning path and outcomes. It is also important because we recognize that this process will facilitate recognition of diplomas and certificates, ensure portability of qualifications and mobility of persons across the continent. Ladies and gentlemen, we at the AUC and our key partners, the European Union, through the ACQF project team, thought of organizing this series of workshops specifically to interact with stakeholders in the space of qualification and accreditation across the continent and to share best practices, being aware of the growing need to develop common understanding of key concepts, objectives, the types and operational instruments of national and regional qualification framework. This is the first of many capacity building webinars geared towards enhancement of collaboration amongst institutions of African Union member states involved in the ACQF development activities. We are particularly happy that experts across board, practitioners and international guests will be part and parcel of this important series of webinars to share common understanding of what what's the qualification framework across the globe is, and to begin to replicate these practices in our own individual countries. Ladies and gentlemen, looking at today's program, I am very convinced that at the end of this exercise, we will all be armed with the necessary skills and knowledge to propel us to our destination. The topic to be deliberated upon, namely the Kenyan National Qualifications Framework, contributing to reforms, quality and coherence, the European Qualification Framework, learning from 12 years implementation, the Slovenian National Qualification Framework, an online qualification database, all of which were carefully selected, and I urge you all to take keen interest in the deliberations. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, with those very few remarks, it is now my pleasure to declare this webinar officially open. I will now invite my dear friend and partner on this project, Eduarda, to very briefly present the key objectives, the themes, as well as the modalities for the peer learning program. Eduarda, over to you. Eduardo, you have the floor. Apologies, can you hear me? Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we are hearing you.
Yes.
From Harare, I can hear you. Thank you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Eduardo, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Do you hear me, colleagues?
Yes.
We can hear you now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, yes, we hear you.
Yes. Okay, thank you. And do you see the presentation? Is it shared?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Okay, great. Thank you. So thank you very much, Emmanuel, for your starting remarks and for already introducing the main objectives of this webinar. I'm going very quickly through the slides that I had prepared in case the African Union Commission would not be with us because of the problems of internet connection.
Okay.
I just would like to be sure that you all have selected the language that you prefer for this webinar. As you know, we have a multilingual English, French webinar. I hope you have been able to select, and to do it, you just have to click the interpretation. Thank you very much to our interpreters as well. Okay. We are all working in different time zones, as it is noticed. And let me just start very quickly with a brief introduction to the capacity development program of the African Continental Qualifications Framework Development Project. My name is Eduardo Castel Branco. I am the thematic expert in this team. Glad to see you again, and thank you for so many new faces, new participants joining with interest this activity. So the capacity development program is one of the components, one of the lines of work of this project, African Continental Qualifications Framework Development. And it contributes, as Emmanuel has already said, to develop a common knowledge base, common understanding, and also to enhance engagement of the African Union member states, and naturally leading to mutual trust. The first phase, which starts today, will go through July, another webinar, 16th of July, if everything goes well, and then September and October. We then hope to have, this will be then the basis, the starting basis for the second phase in 2021, which will be more geared towards an advanced level of knowledge, understanding, and also practical application. Let's say that one of the important objectives of this program is also to put together an experts network, what we are calling ACQF experts network, which we think will be fundamental for sustainability of this project in the future. The agenda has already been briefly introduced by Emmanuel. Thank you very much. The three cases today, I just would like to underline that we have two national qualifications frameworks and one wider overarching meta framework, the European qualifications framework. So they are of different nature, as we will see. Then we have then a session for discussion, questions, with 2 comments, very short comments, by Dr. Jeffy Mukora from Mozambique, and also from by Dr. Mohamed Slassi, Morocco. He is the director of the Branches Observatory of Morocco. We would like to say that you have, of course, the possibility to share, to write questions or comments in the chat box. So this is how we are able to work in this modality. So naturally that you can also raise your hand if you have a special comment or question to make. But in principle, we would like to direct you all with your questions to the chat box, and all questions will be addressed in the final session. Emmanuel already mentioned, but I would like just to recall for all the new participants present today that the ACQF, the African Continental Qualifications Framework, is a policy initiative of the African Union. It does not work in isolation. It is part of the ecosystem of Agenda 2063. And as you can see in the slides, these various policy instruments and decisions, strategies refer or even require the establishment of such a continental qualifications framework. And maybe just highlight the case of point 4, which is the Continental Education Strategy for Africa, in which strategic objective for C and D concretely, explicitly mention the creation of national qualifications frameworks and development of such a continental qualifications framework. I would not like, of course, to ignore the fact that the ACQF has close ties, of course, with other frameworks such as PAQA, Pan-African Quality Assurance and Accreditation Framework, and also obviously with the Addis Convention, recognition of qualifications. Emmanuel already reminded us about the vision for the ACQF, and I would like just to underline one point. It is an overarching framework, a reference framework, supporting the various objectives, strategic objectives related with integration, African integration, harmonization, cooperation, mobility, and it should be then a comprehensive framework encompassing qualifications from all subsystems and levels of education and training. Well, let me also please very briefly remind the fact that the ACQF is structured along these main components of work. So the first of all, setting a baseline of evidence, and this is being done, almost finalized, through the mapping study. And we use this opportunity to thank all those countries and regional economic communities, institutions, stakeholders who have so generously cooperated with our team in collecting evidence, information, documentation, so that this mapping study is ready by end of September. Then this capacity development program, which also aims at generating buy-in through peer learning, training, practical application. Also then very soon, let's say by September, we hope to start with the analysis of feasibility options for the ACQF. So that the ACQF is a sustainable policy instrument for the African Union. Then drafting the policy and technical ACQF document supported by an action plan, and also with a number of technical annexes such as common guidelines on fundamental topics and questions that will then enable the operationalization of this framework. Across this entire process that goes until mid-2022, dialogue, consultation, And of course, AU decision-making in the end is a fundamental element that we always have to factor in throughout the process. I will finish here just by reminding a couple of important definitions. These definitions will be then explored through the presentations today of our colleagues. And let me recall the definition of qualifications as well as the definition of national qualifications framework. So qualifications meaning a formal outcome of an assessment and validation process, which is obtained when a competent authority determines that an individual has achieved learning outcomes to given standards. And national qualifications framework, meaning a policy and an instrument for the development and classification of qualifications according to set of criteria for specified levels of learning achieved, and which aims at integrating, coordinating national qualifications subsystems and improve the transparency, access, progression, and quality of qualifications in relation to the labor market and civil society. And finally, the last definition is quite important. As we all know, the African Continental Qualifications Framework is not a national qualifications framework. It will be closely interacting with national qualifications framework, but then it is more of the kind of a regional qualifications framework, a meta, overarching framework, referencing framework. So a broad structure of levels of learning outcomes that is agreed by countries in a geographical region as a means of enabling one national framework of qualifications to relate to another, and subsequently for a qualification in one country to be compared to a qualification from another country. You have these presentations all already available on the website that has been prepared for this first webinar, and you can look at all the remaining slides of this presentation. We are not going to look at them all at all. I just would like to recall that the ACQF mapping study, which is the first big pillar of the project, has now managed to expand, let's say, the coverage of countries contributing with information, data, and we are very grateful to all the countries that have recently submitted also their surveys in the second round. Thank you very much, 5 countries. So as you see, now we have the project has a very good coverage. In yellow, I would like to say these are countries of the ECAS, meaning Economic Community of Central African States, and we are waiting for the submission, for their submissions of surveys and information. And thank you very much to Dr. David Osene for his cooperation and for leading this conversation with the countries in that region. And in blue, countries with which we have not yet established a very good flow of cooperation, but we will get there. And this, to finalize this presentation, just to show a picture that is already, let's say, the result of the data collected so far from the various sources of the mapping study, allowing us to present in this very schematic and simplistic, of course, manner, the state of national qualifications frameworks in Africa. And this refers to 37 countries, the countries that were marked in brown in the previous picture, the map. And you can see that actually the situation looks quite promising in terms of a continental qualifications framework. Since we have in green shades, you can see the number of countries that have already started implementation of qualifications frameworks. And of course, some are more advanced than others. South Africa, Mauritius are, let's say, more advanced with a very long history. Others are starting, but are doing progress. Then we have 11 countries out of 37 that are in the process of development and consultation, some also more advanced than others, so 30%. It is very important also to notice that part that, of countries we are calling here early thinking. They are starting the reflection, they are engaging, they are taking a decision to move forward. And we have then 6 countries out of this sample of 37 that are considered in this block. So this is to give an impression of how the qualifications frameworks in Africa look like now, in terms of stages, let's say, of development. And this is a, let's say, promising picture for the African Union and this project to engage further. Thank you very much. I pass immediately the floor back to Emmanuel and for the presentations then of our colleagues, the speakers today.
Thank you, Eduarda, for that very interesting overview of the ACQF project. Without much delay, let's invite Dr. Mukwana to present the case of Kenya National Qualification Framework. Over to you, Dr. Mukwana.
Dr. Mukwana will share his presentation himself. Thank you.
Thank you, Eduarda, for that introduction. And I will also be on my video, but I'm going to put it off so that I don't stretch the internet resources here. So that's my presentation. This presentation, as Eduarda has indicated, is already available on the internet, and we have also just published a paper on the Kenya National Qualifications Framework, which has also been shared with all the participants. So in this presentation, I will not try to read word by word because the documents are already available. As indicated, the Kenya National Qualification. So I hope that my presentation is up. Everybody can see it?
Yes, it is up, Dr. Mukwana, and your sound is good. Thank you.
Okay, now let me stop the video. Okay. And pull this to where? Somewhere. Okay, and I think part of what I'll be sharing is really to say that I'm not saying the Kenyan qualification framework is the best, but I think that this in some way highlights. There's a lot of background noise, admin. I don't know if you can switch off microphones. Okay, thank you. So in some way, what I'll be talking about is the kind of a roadmap that one can use to establish a national qualification framework, and some of the important elements that you need when it comes to establishing a national qualification framework. As you will see, the Kenya National Qualification Authority is established under an Act of Parliament, which is the Kenya National Qualification Framework Act of 2014, and we also have KNQF regulations of 2018. And I think the important thing to highlight here is that a good qualification framework that will bring harmony and coordinate events needs to be anchored within the national policies of our countries and also our legal framework, so that they can stand the test of time, and so that also that the work that the frameworks do can live for posterity. So the Kenya National Qualifications Framework is the custodian of the Kenyan qualifications. We also define Kenyan qualifications, and we've defined this using several methods. I will explain that. We also define the interrelationships between the various qualifications. Our work cuts across from basic, TVET, up to university level. So we cut across all the layers of our education system. And we are also the agency that is tasked to create international comparability between Kenyan and other qualifications obtained across the world, including, of course, other African countries. In defining qualifications in Kenya, we've defined 10 levels of qualifications, which you will see shortly. We also defined the volume of learning that must go to each level of our qualification for it to meet the national standard. We also defined the learning outcomes that should come out from each of the 10 levels that we have defined. And of course, entry behavior and the entry requirements for people that qualify to enter the different levels of our qualifications. Why was the Kenya National Qualification Authority established? I'll go through a number of things that the authority was established because within the country, we had fragmented qualifications that were awarded. So we had very many players with the contradicting standards, with the contradicting sometimes regulators. We also have a big issue between the skills mismatch, that what is coming out of our colleges and our universities and what the market is looking for, there's a big mismatch. So there's a skills mismatch, there are skills gaps, and there are questions about the relevance of some of the qualifications that we are awarding in terms of how relevant they are to the employers, to the private sector, to the government, and industry. And then there was a lot of rigidity and lack of clear and standardized progression pathways. So it was always very difficult if you took, for example, a vocational route, how you will progress to university or other jurisdictions. So there was a lot of lack of understanding, and sometimes students were disadvantaged because they finished one qualification and they realized that they cannot proceed as they had expected. Then there's a big elephant in the room, which is failure to recognize other forms of learning. We all know that learning does not take place in a classroom alone, but within our jurisdiction, there was no system to recognize prior learning, informal learning, and other forms of learning, which now the authority is addressing. And then there was need for a transparent, fair, equitable, and standardized way of acquiring qualifications. Because, so for example, if I give an example, we had a national diploma, and in some institutions, the diploma would take as low as 6 months, 1 year, and in another institution, they will be taking 3 years, and they are all defined as diplomas. So the framework has now defined what a diploma would look like, the volume of learning, the learning outcomes, and any qualification that has to be called a diploma then must meet the national standard that has been defined for that qualification. And because of internet and of course ICT, there has been an increasing rate of fraud in academic credentials. So we had a lot of qualifications that are obtained outside the education system. So people creating qualifications online through backdoor and so on. And the quality of those qualifications was not very good. And there was also a big gap in how we regulate foreign qualifications, because we have a large number of foreign, German, French, English qualifications, American, Canadian, and we didn't have a regulatory framework for regulating qualifications that come from outside the country. And so our main mandate then, as Kenya National Qualifications Authority, one was to establish and maintain the Kenya National Qualifications Framework, which is basically a system of defining which are the genuine qualifications and the standards that they must meet for them to be recognized as Kenyan, authentic Kenyan qualifications. The other role that we play is that all institutions that generate qualifications into the Kenyan market, we register those qualifications. We call them qualification awarding. So we register national qualification awarding institutions, foreign qualification awarding institutions, and recognize and work with professional bodies that also may generate qualifications that are academic in nature. And then we also register the qualifications. So we register the institutions, we register the qualifications that they award. For foreign qualifications, we carry out qualification equivalences and issue certificates of qualifications equivalences. We also register all the learners that come out of each of the qualifications that we have already registered. We have developed policies on recognition of prior learning and other forms of learning. We are also developing policies and standards on credit accumulation and transfer systems, especially between the TVET sector and the university sector. We carry out recognition, equation, and verification of local and foreign qualifications. So if you have a qualification from Nigeria and you want to come and study in Kenya, or from South Africa, or you come from Uganda, you come into Kenya, the law now requires that if you have a foreign qualification, whether you are Kenyan or foreign, that you should be able to bring it to the Kenya National Qualification Framework for recognition and equation before you can use it, one, to access education, to get admission into an education institution, or to look for employment within the country. In terms of other ways of creating standards, we've created a lot of standards in different areas. We have also coded all the qualifications that are available within the country. We have classified them according to key thematic areas. And we have mapped all the qualifications being awarded within the country that meet the KNQF requirements into the KNQF, whether these qualifications come from universities or TVET institutions. And we have also developed standards and regulations on how qualifications will be managed in the country. We have set up a national accreditation system for institutions that award qualifications and also the qualifications that they award. And we have also established and we are carrying out management of sector skills councils. These are industry players that play a role in defining the qualification that the country needs. So we have 9 sector skill councils for each, for engineering, for example, for education, and this sit with curriculum developers and to ensure that the qualifications that we are developing meet industry needs. And these sector skills councils play roles all the way from development of occupational standards, curriculum development, the training and delivery, assessment, up to certification. And we are also working on a national quality assurance system for accredited qualifications. And also we are developing national policies on assessment and examination of recognized national qualifications. We also we have worked on developing guidelines for developing national occupational standards, how industry must be involved in coming up with curricula that will give us qualifications that meet market needs. And one of our key areas in all these undertakings is to link industry to qualifications and to ensure that qualifications that are being generated within the country remain relevant to industry needs. The Kenya National Qualifications Authority Board of Directors is drawn from a wide area of stakeholders within the country. So we have on our board representations from the Ministry of Education, from the Ministry of Labor, which is a consumer of these qualifications, from the Federation of Kenya Employers, from workers' unions, from professional societies within the country, from the Commission for Higher University Education, so there's university representation within the board of the Kenya National, and the TVET Authority. So you can see that the authority then draws its legitimacy from all the key players that have a role to play within the qualification sector within the country. And we recommend that if somebody is setting up a national qualification framework, it's important to ensure that all the key players that have interest in qualifications are involved in the day-to-day management of those qualifications. And we have a number of documents that are the environment that is enabling the work of the Kenya National Qualifications Framework. So as I've indicated, we have a large number within the policies. We have we have regulations, we have standards and guidelines on aspects from occupational standards development to curriculum development, to training delivery, to quality assurance, accreditation, assessment, examination. So all these policies help to ensure that you create qualifications within the country that meet the national need and the national standard. And then as I've indicated, we also have anchored ourselves in legislation. We have an act of parliament, so we can sue, we can be sued. And if somebody violates the standards that you have developed, that you can take them to court. We have a lot of goodwill, especially from the government, drawing from conventions that the Kenya government has already signed at the AU, and other stakeholders appreciate the work that the Kenya National Qualifications Framework is doing. We are also working on a lot of automation of our services. ICT is playing a big role, especially on creating of the national learners record database. And we also see that there is international growing interest in the qualification frameworks, the ACQF, regional qualification frameworks within the ICAD region, the East African region, and all these are drivers that are supporting the work that we are doing. And there's also realization, and especially the need, the market is demanding that they need quality, consistent, and relevant qualifications. And this is a really, and then there's good, so the issue of relevance is important, and there's increased mobility of workers every day and learners. So every day I sit in the office, we receive nearly 100 new applications of students who want to study in Kenya, coming from Tanzania, from Uganda, Rwanda, DRC, Sudan, all wanting to come to study. And so there is a lot of demand for this kind of work. For you to create a national qualification framework, there has to be a lot of consultation, because there are many people that will feel threatened. They will feel you are taking over their work. So we've had a lot of work talking to different stakeholders, professionals, universities, TVET institutions, workers' unions, employers, to ensure that the standards that you are developing then meet their requirements so that they can buy into your process. This is the Kenya National Qualification Framework. I will not go into a lot of it, but if you look at the extreme left here, these are the 10 levels of our qualification framework, and it has two sub-frameworks. There is the academic route here, going up, where you can start off with the primary, secondary, and go up to diploma, degree, up to PhD. But there is also the vocational route here, and we have created here equivalences of TVET and vocational qualifications, and their equivalences on the academic side. And the idea behind this is that in the past, the TVET qualifications were not very well appreciated, and sometimes even holders of TVET qualifications thought that they should be able to cross over to the academic side for them to be appreciated. So we have created a path for TVET qualifications that will take them very high up to almost a level of a postgraduate diploma on the academic side, so that we ensure that people who are taking TVET qualifications are not tempted to start going into the academic side of things, but they remain on the TVET side. And on the last side of this table, we have said the volume of learning that needs to go into each qualification for it to qualify for the level that it has been defined for. This side also defines the amount of credit accumulation and transfer that you can accumulate from the lower level, like level 4, and take to level 5. And this of course, we have now developed more standards and information that users of this can tap into. I've already indicated this, that the Kenya National Qualification Framework taps into the professional societies, nursing, doctors, lawyers, TVET sector, the university sector, the basic sector where we have secondary and primary education, and all these form an ecosystem that then works to produce quality qualifications at all levels of our education system. This is a complicated table. I will not go into it, but it defines the roles. For example, if you come to the university sector, who has jurisdiction to for example, carry out curriculum development, to do quality assurance, to do policy work, to award qualifications, to examine, to award. And so within the Kenyan ecosystem, we will say that most of the universities, for example, have mandate to develop curriculum, to teach, to examine, and award qualifications. But when you come to the TVET sector here, then you will find that most of the time our training colleges can only train. We have a separate institution for curriculum development, for example. We have a different institution for examinations for TVET sector. This is important because sometimes training institutions that have no mandate to examine and award their own qualifications, sometimes cross the boundary and award qualifications. So, and for each of these sectors, we have a quality assurance agents, a regulator. So while the KNQA brings all these stakeholders together, in the university sector, we have the Commission for University Education that accredits universities, accredits their qualifications, and we work with all the players in that sector to ensure that the accreditation system, the quality assurance, the assessment produces quality qualifications. In the TVET sector, we have the TVET authority that regulates qualifications, accredits institutions, and we work with that. And then within the basic sector, we have a similar arrangement, and our work is to really harmonize and better coordinate the regulators and the institutions to ensure that we have national standards that they all abide by. In terms of achievements, you have already seen that we've created a lot of policy documents. I will not go into that. We have provided a level playing ground for all players within the education sector in Kenya. We have made it easier to recognize, equate, and verify both local and foreign qualifications. And we have created national, standardized, uniform national accreditation and quality assurance systems. We are also the institution that is tasked with promoting internationalization of Kenyan qualifications, and we are trying to play our role there. And we've provided a framework for engaging with industry. As I've said, one of the key areas that we are working very hard with is to ensure that our qualifications meet industry needs. And we have also made it easier for learners to progress and to portability of qualifications, because qualifications are now defined in the form of learning outcomes and credits, which you can carry from the TVET side to the academic side, from one level to another level, from Kenya to Uganda, and that is what we are doing. In terms of enhancing, for example, credibility, I've talked about verification of qualifications. What is a credible qualification in Kenya? A local qualification, a national qualification is credible in Kenya if it has been accredited by a regulator in that area. So the institution is accredited, the qualification is accredited, and the student who enters into that qualification meets the minimum entry requirements, and the institution that's awarding that qualification has a legal mandate, and the volume of learning is sufficient for that qualification, and then of course the list of graduates is submitted to the KNQF. For a foreign qualification, we only recognize you as a foreign qualification in Kenya if you are registered in your home country or national qualification. So you can only be a valid British qualification if you are recognized on the office of OFQA. If you're coming from South Africa, you must be registered by the South African qualification. So a valid foreign qualification is one that is awarded by an institution that is registered within on the home country qualification framework. And then within Kenya, if a foreign institution wants to award foreign qualifications in Kenya, they must seek a certificate of qualifications equivalence, which means that we will ensure that you are registered in your home, you have these qualifications, they are relevant for us, and then we give you Kenyan equivalences of those qualifications within our country. I said we are promoting internationalization, and I put a map here. These are the median age ranges. And one of the things that we have been looking at as Kenya is to say that one of the resources that Africa can export to the rest of the world will be its human resources. You can see our age here, it's only 18. Look at Europe, where Eduardo is sitting now, 42. Look at US here, look at Australia here. So you can see that Africa has the youngest population, meaning that if we can give our young people qualifications that meet international standards, that then they will be able to progress as workers and as students across the globe. And this is, we hope that as a country, Kenya, we are playing our role in meeting that requirement. I just looked here and we were looking at the top, for example, countries that take in foreign students. Look at, this is 2017 data. In the US, so they get 1 million new students, foreign students every year. And if you look down here, these are the top 10 countries that take in foreign students. But then when you look at when African students are going out of Africa, where are their preferred destinations? You can see it here. France is, of course, very high, South Africa, Britain, you can see that. But who is contributing these students? And you can see that out of Africa foreign students, Morocco, Nigeria, you can see Kenya here, and we are trying to understand this data so that we can say, how do we promote internationalization of Kenyan education system, and how do we promote more intra-Africa movement of students? I will not go into this one because I think I've already explained it. As part of, we are within the East African region. These are the education systems within East Africa, and you can see how varied they are. And part of creating comparability and the recognition of qualifications is to understand what each country is going through. And so what AU is doing is very important, because the country, we don't want to recognize a qualification from a country where we don't know how it was obtained, how it is regulated, how it's quality assured. So we think that an African continental qualification framework will give us a better understanding of all the qualifications that we have from across the continent, and so that they can give us confidence that when we admit that qualification into our system, that we are admitting qualifications that are fairly comparable to our own systems. And ladies and gentlemen, I think I'll leave it there. I want to, again, what I've said is, in summary, is that for you to develop a good qualification framework in country, there's need for in-country goodwill. So there must be, the players must be very, very interested in that agenda. And also that a good country qualification framework needs to be aligned to regional qualification framework. We are happy that the ACQF is coming up now, when many countries may not have developed their own national qualification framework. And we hope that then it will go a long way in informing these countries in terms of coming up with a qualification framework that is well aligned to the African qualification framework. And we need appropriate laws and tools and policies. I've already indicated that. And we need good networking and collaboration and capacity building. And I want to thank the AU and others for promoting these workshops that will enable us to share and to learn more about qualification frameworks, because qualification framework is a new area for many of us. We don't have many experts. So I really want to say that we need many more Africans to come in to learn how a qualification framework works and help promote and develop qualification frameworks within countries. I want to thank you for your attention. And I also want to say that if you want to contact us, this is our website, knqa.edu.ke, and this is our email. So you can always write to us in case you need more information. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for your listening and for your attention from all across Africa and in Europe, wherever you are listening to me. I want to thank you and hand the mic back to Eduarda.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mukwana, for this excellent presentation. Colleagues, the presentation is available in French and in English on the website. And we move to the next session then. And we will have then the case of the National Qualifications Framework and the National Qualifications Register, online register, with very agile functionalities of Slovenia. And so I would like to ask our colleague Urška Marentic, who is the Deputy Director of the Institute for Professional Education of Slovenia, which is also the institution in charge of coordinating the National Qualifications Framework and the Register, to please then prepare and start sharing. Excellent, Urška. We had done a test and it works very well. Thank you. The floor is yours, Urška. You can put your presentation in a mode. Yes, excellent.
I put it. Do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you very well.
Okay.
Hope it will go well. Thank you, Urška.
Okay. Hello to everyone. First of all, I would like to thank our host and Eduarda for the invitation to participate in this event. Like Eduarda say, in my today's presentation, I would like to present the development and implementation of Slovenian qualification framework. This year we have 10 years of starting development of our Slovenian qualification framework, and I want to introduce you to the main milestones in the development of our framework. We started with the development of Slovenian qualification framework in 2010. Before, in October 2009, our institute was nominated as National Coordination for ACOF. And in January 2010, our government appointed an interdepartmental working group for ACOF, which consists of representatives of relevant stakeholders. This group is the highest decision-making body in establishment of ACOF and also in the referencing phase, but now they are also responsible for monitoring the implementation. From 2010 to 2011, our NCP developed, we are responsible for the development of Slovenia qualification framework with small expert group, consists of the experts from the field of education, higher education and labor market. We also have a broad consultation with various stakeholders, representative of employers, trade unions, ministries, schools and higher education, and also the broad discussion with our national councils for higher, general, vocational and adults education. After we preparing our framework, then we started with the referencing with the reference our framework to the ACOF and our levels to the ACOF levels, and an evaluation of this referencing work was provided by 3 international ACOF experts, and we finished work in 2013, and then we presented in May 2013 our referencing report to the ACOF advisory group. This group was mentioned before by the Kuhn, and then we have 1 year of discussion with this group about one of our levels. We put in the level 8 ACOF framework, and our final version was then published on 2014. Then in December 2015, the Slovenian Qualification Framework Act was adopted, and this act then represent legal basis for Slovenia qualification framework for work of our national coordination point, and also and in July 2016 this act enters into force. From 2013 till now, we are also in the phase of implementation of our Slovenia qualification framework. And in this phase, we developed our portal to provide access to information about Slovenia and European qualification framework. And our register of qualifications is also the part of this portal. I don't know if Koen said this, but on the major highlights on the revision of 2017 recommendation relates to inviting country to review and evaluate national qualification frameworks. Therefore, our national coordination point in cooperation with CEDEFOP started between 2018, in May 2018 and to December 2019, the evaluation of the Slovenia qualification framework and the register too. And the results of evaluation will be the basis for further ACOF implementation activities planning, and also for discussion on revision of Slovenia qualification framework. I must say we want to present the results of evaluation on the international conference we planned in March this year, but it was postponed by the Corona crisis. Now we plan to organize this conference in, we hope in September this year. Maybe just one more slide about the milestones of our development and referencing report. We reach all the milestones and objectives from the 2008 recommendation, because we appointed our national coordination point. We also reference all our levels to the ACOF levels and publish our referencing report. And also from 2016, the ACOF and ACOF levels are recorded in all public certificates and diplomas. And I think one of the picture of those certificate is ours. I think the first one. Now I would stop talking about our framework, and I suggest we watch a short presentation video about our framework. Oh, I apologize, something interrupt. I will try to start again.
And the volume of the video is very low.
Oh, okay.
Are you able to increase
I will
that
try.
volume?
Est aujourd'hui un président totalement hors norme, un ovni politique façonné par ses années de prison sous la dictature militaire. Je te vis au bon. J'avais un matelas pour dormir. C'était comme avoir gagné à la loterie.
This was the general information video for presentation of our Slovenian qualification framework, but now maybe some more deep information about the qualification framework. It is the unified system of qualification in Slovenia, and the purpose of the framework is to achieve transparency and recognizability of qualification in Slovenia. And the main objective are to support lifelong learning. And I think the most important is to integrate the object. We try to integrate and harmonize Slovenian qualification subsystem. And here, I think with the register, we connect all the subsystem and achieve the transparency of our qualification, because now we have all the qualification in one framework. Communications is the framework of communication, but it also contained a small elements of reform. I will talk about those reform part later when I will present our new system of qualification, so-called supplementary qualifications. Why we decide to have the communication not reform framework? Because before we started with the developing of the Slovenia qualification framework, we have a reform in vocational education and training, and also Bologna reform. So we decide to put those qualifications in our framework, and we also decide that we have one comprehensive framework. So we put in our framework all the qualifications qualification from primary school to PhD, and also general, vocational, and higher education qualifications. We have, similar than Kenya, 10 levels of our framework. You could see here for the education, which are the certificates and diplomas. And then these 10 levels enables a flexible connection between the educational and qualificational structure in Slovenia. And in the second phase, then we reference our levels to 8 ACOF levels, and we prepare the analysis, and after the analysis we defined, when we look for the descriptors of our framework and the ACOF, that the level 4 and 5 are we reference to the level 4 of ACOF on the best fit principle, and then we have also level 9, and we reference it to the ACOF level 8 on the best fit principle. And those qualifications, they are our old Master of Science qualification. They are the qualification we have in former Yugoslavia, and those qualifications are now referenced to the level 8, because we think when we look on the descriptors that the descriptors of our level 9 are higher than the level 7 or the second cycle of Bologna diplomas. Our levels are determined by descriptors based on learning outcomes. They include 3 learning outcomes categories for every level: knowledge, skills, and competencies. Every higher level also include knowledge, skills, and competence at a lower level. Every qualification in the framework include all 3 categories, but it is not necessary for every category within a qualification to have the same weight. We think that is very important that the qualification are described with the using of learning outcome. I think this is Kuhn also emphasizes. So we prepare in Slovenia guidelines for the implementation and use of the Slovenia qualification framework and learning outcomes in practice. We organize also several workshops on the use of learning outcomes in practice, and the target group were the professionals who prepare description of different types of qualifications. The purpose of this activity was to provide guidance for using the ACOF descriptors and understanding the learning outcomes in placing qualification on ACOF level. Like you see in our video, we have 3 types of qualifications: educational qualification, vocational, and supplementary qualification. Educational qualification can be obtained after completing formal educational or study program. You see the levels and the certificates documents in previous slide 2, and the school leaving certificate or diploma is awarded as a proof of qualification. So, but for the accreditation of those qualifications is responsible Ministry of responsible for education. For higher education, we have Slovenian Quality quality assurance agency for higher education. Then we have the second pillar of our types of qualification are vocational qualifications. Here I would like to present our because our NVQ system, because we decide to put in our framework also the qualifications that can be obtained after validation of non-formal and informal learning. This is so-called National Vocational Qualification System. It is only for adults, and the certificate is as a word of proof of qualification. And we have also here the legal basis from 2000. Now I think we have 95,000 certificates. I must say this is a lot for Slovenia because we are a very small country. We have only 2 million people, so this much certificate, I think we are proud that we opened our framework also for the formalization of different ways of acquiring the knowledge, skills, and competences. And this system is in the responsibility from the ministry responsible for labor. Last year, also Ministry for Education started to develop new vocational further training programs, and our institute is also responsible for the development of this new program, but we are in the initial phase. We start with methodology and some pilot programs, but this qualification can be obtained only after the completing a full training program. So here is the difference between these training programs and NVQs that can be obtained after validation, and training is not obligatory. And then the third part of the qualification, these are so-called supplementary qualification. This part is the reform element of Slovenia qualification framework, and I think an important upgrade because Slovenia decided to open our framework also for non-formal private qualification from companies in this stage. But we are here very carefully because it was very important to have quality assurance of those qualifications. And now we have from 2007 only 13 qualifications, and I think the 300 certificates, because we have the criteria for the accreditations are not so easy. Because, like I said, it is very important, the quality assurance of the Slovenia qualification framework. So we have core institutions, we have the interdepartment working group for ACOF who is decision making and monitors all the process. Then our NCP is also responsible for developing and monitoring of the process, and Ministry of Labor also nominated a small expert panel of our NCP. They are responsible for the monitoring of the accreditation of supplementary qualifications. then only those qualifications that go through formal accreditation procedure are automatically included in our Slovenia qualification framework. These procedures are described, and like I said before, for the higher education is the responsibility of Slovenian Quality Assured Agency for Higher Education. For general and VET qualification is the responsibility of Ministry of Education, and for the NVQ system and supplementary qualification we have Ministry of Labor. And now some information also about our portal and register. Portal together with the register is publicly accessible information system of Slovenia qualification framework that provide insights into all of the individual qualifications that can be obtained in Slovenia, and all qualifications are presented in Slovenia and in English language. The added value, I think the added value is that framework with the help of the register significantly increase the transparency of our qualification system in Slovenia, and after the evaluation we also see that it was used by different target groups, by learners and employers, employees, and also by employers, educational institutions, career counselors, and recognition body. Our INIC Center, for example, also used our register for the purpose of recognition of foreign qualifications. Maybe some information also on the development of our register. We started in 2009 with this initial phase where data were collected manually from Ministry of Education and the National Agency for Higher Education. And those data were collected through accredited programs. But I think in the development of our register, the milestone was the year 2012, when our NCP decided that we set up new online platform for register of our qualifications, because existing registers of educational and study programs were not suitable. Why? They didn't have information about learning outcomes, but we think this is the key information for description of qualifications. So now each qualification included in the register is described with set of same parameters, and these parameters were based on ACOF methodology and also on proposed parameters on the ACOF portal. Because Slovenia was one of the first 5 selected countries in testing phase to begin connected their national register to the ACOF portal. Further on, with the Commission support for development of database, we managed to collect all data of formally recognized qualification in Slovenia and include them in the register. Also, all qualifications, like I said before, are described in Slovenia and in English language. And we also establish electronic platform through which institutions could update and upload necessary data which are included directly in the register. And for the end, in 2018, we published all our register, all our qualification on the learning opportunities and qualification portal. And in January 2019, we also published our qualification on ACOF portal. And this year, I hope we will publish our qualification on the Europass portal. And I hope the team will say when it will, the qualification will be published. And maybe some short information about the implementation of the register. We have now the legal basis. This is the ACOF Act. And this act defined necessary parameters in which qualification are described in the register, and also defines that institution such as Slovenia Quality Assurance for Higher Education and National Educational Institute are now obliged to provide necessary data for description and inclusion of individual qualification into ACOF register. We are very happy now because now we knew that our framework will be up to date, and this is always very important for the register. Now we have, I think, 106,000 qualifications, and if we see the type of qualification, the 80% of those qualifications are educational qualification, and I think 80% of those are for higher education. Because we have really a lot of qualification in Slovenia in the higher education. And in last 2 years, we work on functionalities of our register because we want the register be as much as possible user friendly. So what we also prepare the video guide for how to use the register. And now I think it's better to see the short video on usability of our register. Here you could see the portal with the general information and videos for different target groups. Descriptors of the qualification and levels. We have various methods to search for qualifications. The easiest by the qualifications name. Then advanced search, you could search with several parameters, translated titles, then levels, type of qualifications, ISCAT fields, or awarding bodies. also the learning outcomes are in each qualification. Then we prepare the qualification comparison tools, enables users to compare 2 or 3 qualifications by various parameters. And the search option of searching through register is to search by ISCET field. We want to prepare transparent presentation of qualification structure in sector. You could see all the qualification by the type and by the level, but at the end you could get also the transparent list of types and levels of qualifications that can be acquired in a selected sector. The presentation of career path with related qualification of the selected sector in the framework enables users to more easily plan the future steps of their own career development. And for the end of the presentation about the register, some information about quality assurance, like framework for the register is also important that the qualification that are included in the register are accredited qualification. Then our national coordination point is in charge for managing of the register, and we try to function as a gatekeeper for all qualification included in the register. And like I said before, I think the most important is to provide accurate and up-to-date information about qualifications in Slovenia. So we establish electronic communication with the system of quality assurance agency and our NRP portal. This portal is important because they have all the information about our national vocational qualification NVQ system. At the end, we also try to promote framework through portal. We prepare videos, video and brochure of Slovenia qualification framework general presentation you saw as the first video. And then we also prepare the short videos for different targets groups, for individuals, for employers and educational institutions. And for those target groups, we also prepared brochures in which we present why framework is important for them and how they can use it. All those material are published on our website, on the portal, and you are invited to visit our portal. And this is all from my side. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Urška, for this presentation and for all the detail you have included in it. Also for the videos, they are always useful. Although, of course, we have limited time. Thank you very much. There are already questions in the chat box. And before we move on to reply to some of the questions, I would like then to invite our colleagues, Dr. Jeffy Mukora, as well as Dr. Mohamed Slassi, to share with us their 2 minutes, very, very brief main comments, main takeaways impressions about the experiences that were shared here today. Unfortunately, the presentation on the EQF was not completed, and we had very important difficulties in following. But at least we have the two national qualifications frameworks very well presented, and interestingly, both are 10 levels qualifications frameworks, one in Central Europe and the other one in East Africa. Jeffy, would you like to share with us your 2 minutes of main comments, main impressions from the presentations? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Eduarda, and thank you for the participants. First of all, let me just congratulate the 3 presenters. They presented quite very well, although the European qualification framework was not very clear, but I think we'll get the information later on. I've got only 2 minutes, but I will highlight what I think are the biggest takeaways I've managed to get from the 3 case studies. The first one is that the development and implementation of qualification frameworks is a complex process. It requires time, adequate resources, both financially and human expertise. It also requires strong political will, requires the involvement of and a dialogue between learners, education and training institutions, employers, professional bodies, workers' unions, and other relevant stakeholders for this initiative to work successfully. It also requires wider stakeholder consultation. The second, it has to do with the purposes of qualification frameworks, both the national and the meta framework. I managed to pick 3 main purposes from the 3 presentations. One is mobility, the second one is recognition, and the third one is lifelong learning. But my comment to these purposes is that qualification frameworks, being national or continental, are not introducing automatic mobility, nor are they introducing automatic recognition of qualifications between countries. What they do is to make recognition, to make mobility easier through the increased transparency that NQFs bring. The third one is that the success of any qualification framework very much depends on its relevance and credibility to individual learners, education and training institutions, employers, and policymakers. These stakeholders must be convinced that a national qualification framework or continental qualification framework is needed and can contribute directly or indirectly to their lifelong learning. The fourth one and the last one is to do with the shift from learning inputs to learning outcomes. What learners know, understand, and are able to do. Now, my comment is that with the pandemic brought about by COVID-19, are we not challenged to rethink the way we think about how learners know, understand, and are able to do? Because what learners know, are able to do now, how they use technology, or how do they participate in online learning, might need us to rethink on how we transform the learning outcome approach to suit the use of technology in the use of ICT. Thank you, Edward. I think my 2 minutes is gone.
Thank you very much, Jeffy. Jeffy is speaking from Mozambique, Maputo, from one of the meeting rooms of the Council for Quality Assurance and Accreditation in Higher Education. Thank you very much for your 4 most important takeaways and points. Thank you. Je voudrais donc demander maintenant au docteur Slassi
Bonjour.
I would like to ask Mr. Slassi to now speak and present his most important takeaways on these experiences shared today. Mr. Slassi represents and is the director of the Branches Observatory of Morocco. And he is a very active also player and member of the General Confederation of Enterprises of Morocco. So he represents in a way the employers, the economy, the economic partners, and his takeaways will be very interesting for us as well. Thank you. The floor is yours. 2 minutes.
Merci, Eduarda. Mesdames et messieurs, bonjour. Alors, pour soutenir mon discours, je vais projeter et m'essayer effectivement d'utiliser un slide pour structurer ma présentation. Alors, si vous permettez, je vais pouvoir le passer sur un document. Donc, je peux partager, si c'est possible. Donc, je vais...
Tu peux essayer de partager, oui. Share.
Alors, je n'y suis pas là.
Okay.
Et donc, un document, on aura très bien.
Please, Sylvia or Anna, could you give Mr. Slassi the possibility to share screen?
Mr. Slassi, actually, all participants have the possibility to share the screen. If you see, there is a menu bar at the bottom, and there is a green button, Share Screen. This is called. So if you click on it, you should be able to share your screen immediately.
Otherwise, you can, okay, very good. Oh, no, that's not so good.
Est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Oui, on vous entend, oui.
Vous avez il n'y a toujours pas de partage, c'est ça?
Perhaps could you then just formulate the most important messages that
je vais les formuler.
For our...
D'accord. Bon, écoutez, je vais formuler sans support. Je vais essayer une dernière fois. Et puis, si ça ne marche pas, je vous promets que... Ah, je pense que ça marche cette fois-ci. Est-ce que vous avez quelque chose à l'écran?
Yes.
Oui, c'est bon, oui. Excellent. Merci beaucoup. Alors, si vous voulez, pour structurer un peu mon intervention, je voudrais simplement tenter effectivement de voir avec vous, par rapport au levier du cadre national de certification, sur l'amélioration de l'efficacité sur le système d'enseignement et de formation. Sur ces deux composantes, efficacité interne et efficacité externe. L'efficacité interne, c'est donc l'amélioration de la qualité du processus d'apprentissage et de la délivrance des certifications. Quant aux efficacités internes, c'est bien sûr l'amélioration de la réponse du système d'enseignement et de formation aux besoins du marché du travail et de la société. Et bien sûr, le troisième levier, c'est l'interaction entre le système d'éducation et de formation et le marché du travail, à travers effectivement la définition des acquis d'apprentissage et des modalités d'évaluation. Donc, par rapport aux trois présentations que nous avons pu voir, l'IQF, le cadre européen de certification, en tant que métacadre et depuis 2017, met l'accent sur les acquis d'apprentissage et c'est quelque chose d'absolument essentiel, effectivement, pour avoir une approche axée sur et centrée sur ces éléments qui améliorent la relation entre le système et les besoins pour lesquels il est sollicité. Quant effectivement l'amélioration interne, on voit bien que dans le cadre national kényan, il y a de grands défis en la matière. Donc, des défis supplémentaires pour réduire un certain nombre de fragilités, de déficits structurels. Donc, l'accent est porté sur cette efficacité externe et on le voit bien parce que, à côté d'un certain nombre de considérations, bien sûr, partagées avec d'autres, il y a des problématiques qui sont spécifiques à nos pays africains. On voit des problématiques liées à la transparence, la justice, l'équité au regard de l'accès à la certification. On note aussi comme défi pour le cadre national kényan, comme objectif la réduction de la fraude dans l'acquisition des certifications supérieures. On note également la fluidification du parcours de l'apprenant entre les différentes sous-composantes fragmentées du système d'éducation et de formation, et aussi la réglementation aussi de certifications étrangères délivrées dans le pays. Donc, voyez-vous, nous avons un certain nombre d'enjeux supplémentaires qui induisent bien sûr de multiples objectifs dans le mandat qui est accordé au système d'assurance qualité kényan et qui se traduit donc par des multitudes d'institutions qui vont implémenter toute la chaîne de valeur avec effectivement un certain nombre de rattrapages structurels, rattrapages de fragilité qui ne doivent pas bien sûr impacter sur la création de valeur qu'apporte effectivement le cadre national de certification sur l'efficacité interne et sur la réponse aux sollicitations du marché du travail et de la société. Donc, c'est ça l'enjeu d'ailleurs de tous les pays africains, c'est avoir effectivement ces structures rattrapages sur les structures structurelles du système d'éducation et de formation. Quand on voit effectivement le cadre slovène, effectivement, il adresse directement 3 objectifs clairs: le support de la formation tout le long de la vie, une harmonisation, une intégration des sous-composantes et l'amélioration et l'accès à la qualité des certifications au regard du besoin du marché du travail et de la société. Donc, on voit bien que c'est équilibré entre efficacité interne et efficacité externe et met au cœur effectivement de la préoccupation les acquis d'apprentissage, learning outcome, en lien avec les considérations du cadre européen de certification. Et donc, de ce fait, l'enjeu, je dirais, les défis sont là, bien sûr, mais il n'y a pas les rattrapages qui sont nécessaires. Et d'ailleurs, on voit que le système d'assurance qualité, il est déconcentré, il est réparti sur 3 organes d'accréditation: le ministère de l'Éducation, le ministère du Travail, l'Agence nationale d'assurance qualité de l'enseignement supérieur. Donc voilà, en conclusion, je pense qu'on peut dire que les 2 cadres nationaux nous renseignent en tout cas que le CNC se construit ou se co-construit chemin faisant. C'est un parcours qui mêle l'action et la réflexion. Et à trop réfléchir, on n'avance pas, comme dans certains pays. Il faut donc y aller parce que l'écosystème se construit, car le coût de l'inaction est considérable et se paie en exclusion sociale et en déficit de compétitivité. Merci beaucoup.
OK. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Slassi, pour ces commentaires. Donc, un point de vue qui reflète assez bien, disons, la vision du monde du travail, du monde des partenaires économiques. Oui. Donc, nous passons maintenant de nouveau à l'anglais. Yes. So I thank you very much again, Mr. Slassi, for your points, for your takeaways, and for also your let's say interpretation and reflection on the 3 experiences that were shared here today. We are a bit advanced with and already over our time, and we have a number of questions in the chat box. So this, what I want to suggest would you agree to stay additional 10 minutes, not more than 10 minutes? And we can look at some of the questions that were asked here today.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, perfect. So let us start with just by informing all of you that the presentations are already uploaded in the website. And only one of them has not been translated into French. It is the ACQF presentation. Some of you have expressed interest in having more detailed information on the EQF, and this will be done. We will also upload leaflets and a brochure on the EQF that is quite easy to read and information rich. So this will be done in French, Portuguese, and also in English. That's no problem at all. There are questions, for example, related with the number of vocational qualifications in the SQF register. So our colleague Tariq Al-Sindi has exactly asked this question: why so few, relatively few, the weight of vocational qualifications in the register? So this is a question addressed to Urshka. Urshka, would you like to quickly reply to this question? If you
yes, like I said, we are a small country, so our VET programs are broader. So we prepare the basis for our vocational educational programs are occupational standards. And the educational programs usually based on more than one educational program. So programs are broader and the qualification is broader. So we have now so many number of vocational educational programs. But those occupational standards are also the basis for the NVQ system. The standards are the same. And there we have 300 of the qualifications that can be achieved also through the validation system.
Thank you very much. Maybe when you will all have a moment to look more carefully at the presentation of the Slovenian qualifications framework, you will see very clearly this differentiation of types of qualifications: educational type, vocational type, and supplementary type. And this might also help you understand why in that graph you see a much lower share of vocational qualifications. It's the type of qualification. Thank you.
Yes, maybe one more information. In educational qualification, we have vocational qualifications, because in the blue column, if you remember, in the blue color where are educational qualifications, they are also the vocational educational qualifications. All the formal qualifications that go through the formal system, they are in the first column, not in the second. In the second are only the further qualification, the new one, and the NVQ system.
Thank you very much. This is a question that we can then specify in the report of the webinar. Okay. So there are a number of very interesting and strategic questions related with the interplay, let's say, of the national qualifications frameworks in Africa, particularly those that are in development, and this future continental qualifications framework. What my reply would be immediately, and I guess the same reply will be given also by our colleagues from the African Union Commission, is at the moment we are still preparing to engage exactly in this discussion about this interplay, this relationship of the national qualifications framework and the ACQF. To what extent will the ACQF be a referencing framework, or more a kind of framework guiding framework? In any case, this mutual, let's say, cross-fertilization and mutual learning between between national and a continental transnational meta framework will be there, but we need to engage in a much closer understanding, analysis of how this will in fact be shaped, and what kind of support mechanisms will be also put in place to interact with the countries, especially those that are developing their qualifications frameworks. So this is a very important question for now the next phase of work on the feasibility, the analysis of the options and the feasibility scenarios for the African Continental Qualifications Framework. There are questions also from, or let's say more comments from colleagues, for example, from Somalia, saying that the discussion taking place here today is very timely, as the country is now engaging also in reflecting on education system structures, and some of the points being made here, some of the highlights, like for example the emphasis on learning outcomes, accountability, governance, are already giving indications to the institutions in Somalia dealing exactly with this reform and this development. The African Curriculum Association, Dr. Gertrude Namulbiru, who is a very active member of the ACQF advisory group and a permanent participant in these discussions, is asking the following. My concern is on whether qualification harmonization will not impact on curriculum of different countries if we have left out curriculum development harmonization. Okay, so this is again another question that we have, of course, in mind, and we take note naturally also for the feasibility, the discussion, the next discussion phase, the next analysis of the options and interactions of the future ACQF with various components of qualifications and the education and training system. Naturally, that the link between curriculum and qualification is intrinsic, has to be further clarified from the point of view. I will, of course, the African Curriculum Association has an important role, an important, let's say, voice in this future discussion, since you are also leading the CISA cluster on curriculum. So it's an you are an important player of the implementation of CISA. We have already discussed this question of the interplay between curriculum and qualifications in the past, but it has to be continued. We will also try to address it a bit more in the report of this webinar. Okay, other colleagues are asking about the location, let's say, where all the documents have been uploaded, and this is, we will share it again. Yes. So, okay. And I see that our colleague from CEDEFOP, Slava, who is also present here, has shared a document that can be a good source for anyone interested in knowing more about the implementation of European National Qualifications Framework. It is this link is shared in the chat box. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dr. Mukwana is also asking about training and capacity building on qualifications frameworks in Africa at master's and PhD levels. So what can be done in this direction? Let us try to think together how this advanced level of learning can be organized in a manner that is also possible, affordable, and how can this process, this project, the ACQF, provide a concrete assistance? Let's keep this question very, very high on the agenda as well. And yes, the short-term training capacity building will certainly be implemented, hopefully, when the situation, the global pandemic, and in Africa, namely, is mitigated, and we can interact more easily, let's say, in terms of more conventional training activities. we also plan in this project to set up an e-learning platform. Let us also put our hands together and to make it happen in terms of the content of knowledge that has to be then integrated and be part of such an e-learning platform. Okay, yes, to Rachel from ECOWAS, thank you very much for being here. We are really happy to have ECOWAS here. Yes, we will naturally release a summary of this, of the main outcomes. Yes, how to ensure political willingness of member countries in certain regions. Any thoughts? That's certainly a very very important point. And I guess for this specific question, the political lead of the AUC will be a fundamental element, as well as all the dialogue platforms that exist in the AU institutional context. So that all these questions are really important guiding questions for this project, for the AUC in general terms. Okay, somebody is suggesting, so Tarek Al-Sindi, we can conduct NQF training through Zoom as well, sure. Okay. Well, and yeah, unfortunately, we had some technical difficulties, particularly with the presentation on the EQF. We will try to see to what extent this presentation can be repeated or perhaps shared via a video, a specific video to all of you. If we do not manage really to have an additional EQF presentation at the next webinar. Let me just then try to conclude by first of all thanking all participants for your patience. As I said earlier, these webinars online have challenges. We witnessed some of them today. We are still all learning, and thank you very much to all speakers. Kenya, Slovenia, very different parts of the world, economies, societies, and some similarities in approaching the development and consolidation of their national qualifications frameworks. So this is one of the points I would like to make. Then just very briefly, perhaps a few final words about just completing some of the reflections. We saw a framework that is a reform-oriented framework, oriented to creating and enhancing credibility, namely, it's the Kenya case, credibility, integration. We saw the other framework that started by being more of a communication orientation qualifications framework, but in the meanwhile, it is also engaging with quite important, significant reforms. We saw a strong point made on governance, representation-wide, a bit even whole of the government approach to qualifications frameworks, the role of the industry, of the economic players in the consultation. Dr. Mukwana very well underlined, I think everyone saw it very well, it is consultation and consultation and consultation. This is why it takes time, and it takes also leadership and consistency in political will. That's important. We also heard about enablers of a qualifications framework. Probably I will just like then to highlight finally an important, I would say, takeaway. And this was very clearly seen in the case of Slovenia. It is this important kind of effort to make the qualifications framework visible for end users, visible through tools, instruments, online portals, functionalities that can be can be used easily, let's say, by the end users of all categories, from employers to learners, job seekers. And I think this is something that probably has to be always in the mind of qualifications frameworks, leaders, coordinators, and promoters. The fact that the qualifications framework is for the end users eventually. Our next workshop webinar will then be planned for the 16th of July. We are trying to have at this next webinar again as a mix of experiences. Another meta framework, we have invited another meta framework, regional, a very strong integration agenda. It is the qualifications reference framework of ASEAN, so the Southeast Asia community. And then for a framework from Africa, we have invited Mauritius qualifications framework, the authority, the National Qualifications Authority of Mauritius, to share with us their experience, also a long experience, and a reform-oriented framework. And finally, another European qualifications framework, the case of Ireland. This is certainly the most experienced of all frameworks in Europe. And it is again one of the cases where we see a framework reflecting about itself, asking new questions and engaging in new developments. These three cases are not yet confirmed. We are still discussing. Let us hope that all colleagues can be available to share with us. In the further webinars of this program of peer learning, they are scheduled for September. So in August, we have a pause, an interruption. But then in September and October, we will continue. And there we will have many more African experiences, from of frameworks in different, let's say, stage of their design, development, consultation, and dialogue. And I think this is also very, very important for this community, and also for the Continental Qualifications Framework itself, to see how to engage with the diversity of situations across the continent of 55 countries and very varied education and training systems. We will send you this report, the report of this workshop. Hopefully it will be ready next week. It will be shared in the three languages that are, let's say, easier for me to deal with. We will, in the future, also have more translation into Arabic language. Naturally, it's another official language of the African Union. I want to thank all of you for your participation, and please, I want to again underline that your questions in the chat box will all be addressed in the report. Please stay in touch. You have our contact. Stay in touch, ask your questions, send us messages, because the interaction with you is also very motivating for this project, and for naturally the colleagues of the African Union Commission who are working very closely with this project. Thank you very much. We wish you good health, all of you. That's the most important nowadays, and stay safe. Now let me just say a word in French. Pour tous mes amis francophones, je vous souhaite santé avant tout. Restons en contact, tous mes collègues, amis francophones, restons en contact, écrivez-nous, envoyez-nous vos idées, vos suggestions. Et vous recevrez très bientôt le rapport de cette discussion aujourd'hui. Et tout de suite après, vous recevrez aussi le link où vous trouverez tous les documents qui ont été présentés aujourd'hui. Merci beaucoup à tous, chers collègues. Et maintenant, vous pouvez montrer vous pouvez ouvrir vos caméras. On va vous voir tous. Please now, colleagues, you can open your cameras now. We want to see you all.
Merci.
Bye.
You can open your cameras. We will see you, all of you. Professor Tanglang, Professor Tanglang.
I'm just
Hello, how are you doing?
very fine. Are you?
Please, you can open your cameras.
Merci.
Hello, Tarek. And we see, I see the new colleague from Nigeria, Dr. Mariam Sali. She is there. She's for the first time participating. You are most welcome for the next session.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm pleased to meet all of you.
Hey, Caro.
Thank you.
And I also see, hello, Safina, hello, from Uganda. I'm very, very happy.
Hey, bonjour. Yes, I'm also very delighted and happy to be here, and I've followed the discussion, and I appreciated when you said we will share the African experience depending on whatever level we are. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm from Sierra Leone. I'm very take away.
Yes, from Sierra Leone, can you show yourself from Sierra Leone?
Adin? I said thank you. I've got a lot of takeaway from this workshop today. I'm from Sierra Leone.
Excellent, excellent. Good. Thank you very much. Joe Samuels, would you like to show your face instead of a picture? We need to see your face.
No problem. Don't log out your computer.
Thank you so much. And Joe, we are so happy to see you.
Take this opportunity to say thank you also for the nice messages. I got enough to take along with me. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Professor Johansson, marhaba.
Hello. Hello. And I'm glad you said you will translate into Arabic. That's very, we can help. We can all help if need be. Okay?
مرحبا مرحبا دكتورة يوهانسن.
مرحبا دكتور مختار. مرحبا دكتور طارق. دكتور محمد سلاسي كيفك؟ كومو سافا دكتور سلاسي؟
مرحبا.
مرحبا.
Thank you very much. Maxwell from Ghana. It's so helpful.
Okay, Professor Steve from Nigeria.
Lots of takeaways. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve, for being there, teachers.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
That's the African spirit.
Yes, Africa.
Very cordial cooperation and smile.
Thank you
so much. See you very soon again.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. All along.
Au revoir, à bientôt.
Bye.
Goodbye, guys.
Bye.
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 Merci Eduarda. Merci pour ton invitation.
Merci beaucoup pour la présentation.
Merci pour
Un grand plaisir.
Merci pour la présentation.
Avec plaisir. Rwanda.
Merci Eduarda pour tout ce que tu as fait.